Well, I was born in Cleveland, Ohio, grew up in Willowick, Ohio, east side of Cleveland, and actually it was our parents were unbelievably supportive in our sports. I was the youngest of three, all boys, all large boys, and what they instilled in us probably was obviously family first. We were a very, very close family growing up, but also instilling hard work, that you don't get anywhere in life for free. My brother Bob, the oldest, is 6 years older than me, so he was actually in wrestling before I was. And I would watch him wrestle and just fell in love with the sports. Bob was a heck of a wrestler, state champ in high school, took fourth and third a couple of years at Notre Dame when he wrestled. I think he would have won it his senior year, but he got hurt in a bowl game before the draft. First time I wrestled was 8th grade. I know kids wrestle a heck of a lot earlier today. Wrestled varsity from sophomore year on, took my lumps, and then I was my senior year I was ranked number 1 in the state. People ask me what's my biggest sports disappointment, and they're waiting to hear an NFL story or a college football story or a college wrestling story. It's state wrestling in high school. I lost my opening round. The guy's name was Kirk Lowdermilk. He ended up playing football at Ohio State, played in the NFL. I played against him in the NFL for a bunch of years, but I was ranked first in the state. He beat me that first match. I was up on him, and then he came back and he beat me. I came through and took third place, but I was devastated. One of my assistant football coaches and the head wrestling coach at high school, went to St. Joe's High School in Cleveland, was John Storey. He was the same values, his family as my family. He was a hard work, it's the only way you're going to achieve anything kind of guy.
As a wrestler, he was an outstanding competitor, our team leader, our captain, of course, and always encourages his teammates, very much involved in everything that we did on and off the mat. Obviously had tremendous success in football, carried right over into the wrestling room. Tremendous work ethic in the room. I remember the young man that was a weight below him was a state champ. He drove him to that title. And we would spend time after practice. He would always do the extra that he had to do to be in the best condition he could be at the heavyweight division.
From high school to college, especially for a lineman or a bigger guy, heavyweight wrestler, you need to build up. So between freshman and sophomore year, I really took that time to really lift and try and gain some weight. So I wrestled my sophomore and my junior year, and then my senior year, I was getting ready for the draft. So 2 years I wrestled at Notre Dame, and I said I think I ended up with overall a 30-something 4-1 record. Football was my career. I easily loved wrestling as much as football, easily. What wrestling does to help you in football, especially me, I was a defensive lineman, but I don't care what position you play. It is incredible. I just would tell younger kids all the time, wrestle, wrestle, wrestle. It's going to help you. It's going to help your feet. It's going to help your balance. It's going to help your hands, and you're going to love it. You're just going to love the one-on-one competition from it. But the way it has helped me on the football field, I couldn't even calculate that. Once I grew up and played at Notre Dame and then played in the NFL for a number of years, and then would go talk to kids about heroes, about role models, I would always tell them I wouldn't have it be an athlete. Have it be someone closer to you that you know. Because we see athletes, we see them on the field, but you don't really know them. And all of a sudden something may happen. Some may be great role models, others may not. I never ever had a professional athlete as a role model. My father was always my hero and my role model, always. My biggest influences were my high school coaches. First, my parents, as I've talked about. They were, without question, the biggest influence on me. But I mentioned John Storey, my wrestling coach. Bill Gutbrod was my football coach. I mean, fair, knew where you stood with them. They were going to work you, and they expected you to work. And there were no excuses. There were zero excuses. So these were the guys that kind of formed me before I went on to college and before I went on to the NFL and before I went into broadcasting. It was so ingrained in me from a young age on about just sticking it out. If you get knocked down, get back up. If you're hurt, not injured, but hurt, get back out there, play through it. You realize, okay, this hurts, but I'm okay to keep going. And you keep going. And you keep going. And if it means when you're growing up, you have to sacrifice. You can't do this or you can't do that because you're preparing for a match or you're preparing for that season. So be it. And what you learn is when you go into the real world and you have to work a job, that you're prepared. You can work well with others, that you don't mind putting in the extra hours because that's something that you're used to doing. I wasn't a huge name coming out of the NFL. People knew the name between my brother Bob and myself playing, but I wasn't a huge Pro Bowl Hall of Fame name. But what I was told was basically be prepared. Just be prepared. When your chance comes, make the most of it. So that's what I did. I just stay prepared. Again, just like I would in the wrestling room. Do whatever I had to do. Stay prepared, and make sure you're ready to give a peak performance when you're called upon. And that's what I did in broadcasting. I just made sure I knew my business, and then when I got a chance, if a guy left here or a guy was sick there and I got a chance to sit in the chair, I made sure I was ready. When I found out I was being inducted into the Hall of Fame, the first thing I thought was, do they have the right person? I wrestled. I was all right at it, but you think of Wrestling Hall of Fame. You think of the great names that are in it. But when they told me what it was for, I think maybe the wrestling community may not realize is, while you think I've helped you and helped back the sport publicly, that couldn't be further from the truth. You've helped me so much with the sport of wrestling develop as a kid into a man, both in the sports world and in the real world.